My wife, 28F, found out that my mother, 59F, and I, 28M, have been lying to her about our baby, 0M, for months. This all went down about an hour ago, and my wife is still crying in our bathroom with the door locked. Backstory: we had our son, now 11 months old, while my wife is in residency. She took a few weeks off before giving birth and then went back to work a few months after, while I transitioned my hours to part-time so that I could stay at home and raise our son. My mom moved in with us shortly after the birth in order to help out, which allows me to get in the few hours of work per day and also not get swamped with taking care of the baby/housework. She's quite old-fashioned and would definitely not prefer this arrangement with me being a stay-at-home dad, but she hasn't said anything to either of us and has been a great help. For anyone unfamiliar with medical residency, it is brutal. My wife has just over a year left. Sometimes she comes and goes for 1 to 3 days, and our son is asleep the whole time she's home, which has been happening more as his sleep schedule shifted to sleeping through the night. My mom and I make sure that when she's home and the baby is awake, my wife gets him 100%. I know it's been hard on her, but unfortunately it's just going to be this way for another year. The first big milestone she missed was him rolling over. When she got home, my mom pulled her over to the baby all excited. I thought she was going to tell her, but instead she says, "Julie, you came home right on time. He's been moving about as if he's going to roll over." They both stood there encouraging him, and right on cue, he rolls. My wife was elated. She was so worried and guilty about not being there, and she took it as proof that she can still be a present mother while working. So we continued. I send texts over little things she misses through the day so that it's not completely unbelievable. But my wife has been present for every single big milestone. He coincidentally started crawling with her right there. His first words were in front of her, and he began standing, cruising, and walking when she happened to be home. The walking one was difficult. There was a tough 7-day stretch where she just wasn't home during the daytime when he was awake, and his walking went from teetering to walking a couple steps pretty confidently in that time. We put little beanbags in one of his pants pockets so he'd be wobbly and unbalanced, and it looked believable since he fell after the first step like he was doing a week ago. Yes, it was mean to our poor son, but my wife's face was worth it. Today, it all unraveled. So far, he can just say Mama, Dada, and Nana. Yesterday, he started saying bye-bye. My wife has today off and has been home all morning. My mum and I have been trying to get him to say bye all day without giving it away that we already know he can say bye. Successfully got him to say bye to the ducks at the park, and we both gushed over his newest word the whole way home. My wife was using my phone to take pictures of him and began showing my mom at home while telling her about his newest word acquisition. She was swiping through my gallery and saw a video from yesterday and goes, "Oh, you never sent me this one." It was literally like a slow-motion film happening in front of my eyes. I had taken the video of him yesterday, waving bye-bye. My wife isn't an idiot. She figured the whole ruse out pretty much instantly. I've never seen her look so upset and heartbroken before. I couldn't say or do anything to comfort her. Now she's locked herself in the bathroom crying and won't come out. I'm on our bed, hoping someone can please tell me what to do to make this better. Here's the update. Don't think anyone would particularly care about an update, but I all appreciated the insight anyways. So here's an update. After I wrote the original post, my mom took my son to stay overnight with my wife's sister so that the two of us could have the house to ourselves. We pretty much just talked for an hour while constantly reaffirming that we love each other a lot and want to sort this out. I apologized and explained why I did what I did. She said that feeling like she was there for our son's milestones was really just a band-aid solution that didn't actually convince her she was present. She said that if she actually had been using the milestones to feel like she was present, this would probably have felt worse for her. But since she wasn't, in her words, deluding herself into thinking she's actually home, her main issue was that I lied, which hurt her feelings. I apologized and explained that I honestly thought that she would prefer the lying if given the choice. She said she understood where I was coming from and that she felt betrayed when she realized. But she sees that I was doing it because I love her, and she thinks we'll probably laugh about it with our grandkids one day. Yes, I am very aware I don't deserve my wife. Some things came out on my end that I wasn't going to tell her, and didn't mention in my last post. Namely, that I'm scared she's going to become suicidal. My uncle committed suicide when I was a child, in part from working in a high-stress job where he made a huge and costly mistake. One of my wife's colleagues attempted suicide while she was on mat leave. Being a working mom is bad enough. Being a resident in this program is bad enough. Both combined are a recipe for trouble. Since our son was born and the incident with her colleague happened, I've been afraid that if her home life wasn't perfect, it would push her over the edge. Anyways, she reassured me that that's not happening. And I think saying it out loud also made me realize it's a pretty irrational, groundless fear. We ordered takeout and sat together watching the real videos I have of all our son's firsts. I also have a special folder of pictures/videos of my son with my wife, so we went through that after. She almost choked from laughing so hard when I tentatively revealed the beanbag trick. I am the laughing stock of her friend group chat, so I guess we're already at the stage where we're laughing about it. Thank you to those who responded to the last post. The stereotype of someone in r/relationships advocating divorce every time anything happens is true. There's the first story, what a doozy. Hey folks, I'm SpiderFish. Welcome to another installment of crazy Reddit relationship drama from r/relationships. Don't forget to subscribe for daily content to unwind, fall asleep, or study to. Settle in and enjoy. This one comes from user Demi-Serin. I, 34F, feel unattractive, and my husband, 41M, of 5 years, has low libido. I, 34F, have been happily married to my husband, 41M, for 5 years. We've got 3 kids. Together, we've made a family and help each other's dreams come true, both life goals and careers. We lead a generally charmed life. But like all relationships, none is completely perfect. We have different love languages, words of affirmation, mine, and acts of service, his. For the most part, we overcome this by making a bit of extra effort to speak each other's love language. I do some of his chores during the week. He occasionally pays me a compliment, maybe 3 times a week. However, the trouble started after we'd had our 3rd child. We hadn't had sex for 9 months, and when I brought it up, he was shocked. He could hardly believe it had been that long, but when he looked back, he could see it was true. We had sex once after that conversation, and then nothing again for a few months. About 6 months after our baby was born, I started to feel really down about the way I looked. I hadn't lost all of my pregnancy weight, about 1 kilogram over, but still totally within the normal BMI range. I felt fat and flabby and saggy. I tried to mask over this insecurity by just ignoring it for a while, as I'm generally bubbly and confident, but the lack of sex made me seriously doubt whether my husband was even still into me. Google didn't help. All I could find were either stories of men who wanted more sex than their wife, I wish, huh? Or people telling women their husband wasn't into them anymore. All of this is complicated by the fact that I can't be the one to initiate sex, as this can turn him off. And I also didn't want to pressure him into sex, so I just, for the most part, tried to make myself as attractive as possible and then wait for him to notice. It all came to a head one night when I burst into tears and confessed all my struggles to him. He was very sympathetic and also worried because, of course, he wants me to be happy. He explained that he just has low libido, nothing to do with me, and that as far as he's concerned, he'd happily never have sex again in his life. Not that he didn't enjoy it or anything, but he could live without sex no problem. He realized as a result of this conversation that I didn't feel the same way, and he'd make an effort to initiate sex more often. Since then, things have improved a lot. We have sex 1 to 2 times a month now, and we both enjoy it tremendously. But I still feel like I want more sex, and I still feel unattractive. Past partners couldn't get enough of me. They were always telling me how sexy I was, kissed me every day, looked at me like they wanted me, etc. I have always been treated like a sex goddess. He rarely even looks at me. I am only 34. I feel too young to be shelved like this. Frankly, I don't know if I'll ever want to be shelved, but definitely not in my 30s. I am frustrated that I can't talk myself out of feeling this way, no matter how much I try. I am happily married. I am off the market. I shouldn't care whether or not I am attractive. It should be enough to know that my husband finds me attractive, even though he never says so and only has sex 1 to 2 times a month. This should be enough, and it's already 10 times more than before. But I can't stop my feelings. I miss sex. I hate what I see in the mirror almost every day, and I never used to be like that. I want to feel like a goddess again. Any advice? Any way to make myself feel better without asking my husband to change? TLDR, we have sex 1 to 2 times a month. Husband rarely gives me compliments. I feel unattractive. I want to feel like a goddess. Advice, please? Update. Wow, I am so glad Reddit exists. Thank you so much for all your thoughts and suggestions. My husband and I had a good conversation about everything, and we'll be taking the following steps. Start sleeping in the same bed again. I didn't mention it in the original post, but we've been bed sharing with kids in separate beds, and clearly the time has come to evict the kids from our bedroom. He is going to see the doctor to exclude any possible physiological reasons. For example, low libido can be a symptom of heart disease, and he's at an increased risk of that. Wouldn't hurt to test his testosterone levels either. We're going to hit the gym together. He'll go swimming and I'll lift weights. If doing those 3 things is still not enough, we will go to therapy, either as a couple or me on my own or both, depending on how things pan out. Thanks again. Here's the update. I posted last summer about struggles with my husband of 5 years, our longest dry spell being 9 months. I felt unattractive and undesirable and wanted to have sex more often, but he was happy to never have sex again, aside from how that would affect me. I wanted to feel like a sex goddess again. Reddit advised me all kinds of things, from checking testosterone to therapy, and even that there was no hope. And if I wanted to feel like a goddess again, I'd have to leave him. The comment that hit me hardest was Jimmy Jadance Parties, who pointed out that I was allowed to feel the way I did. Well, I feel like a goddess again, everyone. D. What happened? I decided to go to individual therapy and focus on myself, work on myself. My physical self-image was a symptom of a larger problem. Troubles at work, troubles at home, a storm inside. During counseling, I opened the door to a cellar where I had been keeping my true self locked in the dark, ashamed of her. I was bullied as a kid, and I had no idea I had accumulated so much self-loathing since then. Releasing that was amazing and so freeing. And so, by the time I said goodbye to my counselor, I was stronger and more self-assured. I realized I had been sacrificing so much of myself for the sake of others, especially the important men in my life, my husband, my boss, my father, my manager, etc. I was constantly seeking approval, trying to please them. My relationships had gotten completely out of balance. Things started to get complicated. I developed a crush on a colleague, and because I am demisexual, my attraction to my husband started to diminish. The more time passed, the more I felt like I just didn't care anymore what he thought of me. At a low point, I said to my husband, "You know, you always keep your thoughts to yourself." I used to find it mysterious and interesting, like a puzzle I could unwrap. But now I realize that there's actually no mystery to unravel. There's just nothing. And the silence is boring. It was hurtful and unkind. I'm not proud of it. Something changed after that, both for him and for me. Over the course of the next few months, I gave less, and I took more. I went to conferences, I left the kids with my husband, I took time off work, I stopped making up for the mistakes of my superiors at work, and let them deal with the consequences of their actions. I felt like I was coming home to my true self, my no-nonsense kick-ass self. One night, my husband and I were watching Alien, and he confessed that ever since he'd seen the original as a boy, he'd really liked Ripley. She was the kind of woman he had wanted to marry. And so he married me. You should have seen my face, the tears wouldn't stop. I felt like he had finally told me what I needed to hear the most. I got rid of my attraction to my colleague. It's actually not that hard as a demi. I just focused on everything I didn't like about them. And within a week or two, the crush was totally gone. I find them a total turn-off now. Do you remember I mentioned I wasn't able to initiate sex? That's because it was a huge turn-off for my husband. One evening we discussed why, and you know what? He felt too much pressure if I initiated, because he thought he'd have to perform. Once he realized that he can safely turn me down if he's not in the mood, and also it's okay for us to kiss and cuddle without it leading to something more, he's been okay with me initiating. You'd think you wouldn't get to age 40 without having figured that out, but hey, I guess people never cease to throw surprises. Ha ha ha, our sex life improved a lot. I no longer needed his praise to soothe my self-loathing, so I was less needy about it. He initiated a bit more often, but more importantly, with greater enthusiasm and quality. He chooses what I wear sometimes, and I feel so beautiful when he looks at me like I am the only being that matters. And he compliments me. We even got into a bit of light D/S, which has spiced things up a lot. Even though I had fallen out of love with him for a while, I have fallen back in love with my husband stronger and harder than ever before. I couldn't be happier. I love myself, and I love him so, so much. He's just the best partner I could ever wish for. 3. Thank you, Reddit, for helping me through one of the hardest lows in my life. And thank you especially Jimmy Dance Party for your advice and encouragement. What a happy ending. Those seem like they can be rare on the subreddit, but it's always good to find one. All right, time for the next one from user throwaway 989-89609. My best friend, 20 million, asked me 20 million out. I said yes. I didn't know it was a date. I'm an idiot. I'll try to keep this short. Also, I was a bit drunk when this happened. Noah and I have been best friends since 2nd grade. We lived together with one other friend near the college we go to together. He came out to me when we were in high school. It didn't change anything. When we got to college, I came out as bisexual. Last night we were hanging out with some friends and I had a bit to drink. When we were walking home, I could tell he was nervous, so I asked what was up. He asked if I wanted to go out with him. He literally said, "Do you want to go out with me?" I don't know why, but I thought he meant as friends. Thinking back, he made it really obvious it was a date, but I'm an idiot and I was still a bit drunk. I said yes. He suggested Saturday night. I said yes. I left to go to the gym before he got up, so I didn't see him. While I was at the gym, the friend we live with texted me that Noah was really happy this morning and she didn't know we were going to go on a date. She congratulated me and said we make a cute couple. This happened literally 6 minutes ago. I'm panicking right now. I don't know what to do. I love him, but he's like my brother. I can't go out with him. How can I tell him I'm not interested without embarrassing him more than I have to? I don't want to mess up our relationship. We're supposed to have lunch together in a few hours. What do I do? TLDR, I'm an idiot. My best friend asked me out. I said yes. I didn't know it was a date. How do I fix this as easily as possible for him? Update. Thank you guys so much for the advice. I only saw the first 30-something comments until just now, and I'm blown away by how many people have commented to give me advice. I tried to take a lot of the advice I got, but some of it was contradictory, so I couldn't do all of it. Thanks again to everyone who gave advice, even if I didn't see it until after we talked. I texted Noah and asked if we could skip lunch and go home instead so we could talk. I tried not to make the conversation dramatic. I apologized to him for misunderstanding him and told him I knew it must have taken a lot of courage for him to ask me out. I told him that he was my best friend, I loved him, and that would never change. But I had never thought about a romantic relationship with him. I apologized for fucking up and getting his hopes up. He asked a few questions like, did I really not know he meant it as a date? He apologized for fucking things up between us, but I told him that I wasn't uncomfortable with him feeling that way about me. I told him that I understood if he wanted space to process it, and I would give it to him if he wanted, but I also told him how important he is to me and how much I love him. He said he didn't think he wanted space. He just wanted to try to move on with the secret out. We've always been totally open with each other. Well, except for him liking me, I guess. And he said he was happy he wasn't keeping his feelings a secret anymore. We had a cheesy moment where I told him he could always talk to me about anything. It was like straight out of a rom-com. We talked for a long time after that. Apparently, he's had a crush on me since before he came out in high school, and after he had a few drinks last night, he decided, fuck it, why not try? By the time he had to leave for his class this afternoon, things felt normal. I don't feel weird knowing about his crush, and he doesn't seem to feel hurt or anything because of my fuck-up. Maybe just a little sad. I'll definitely keep an eye on how we interact and how he acts for a while. A few people warned me against accidentally flirting with him, and I'll try to keep anything like that in check. I guess this is a happy ending. I know there are still things to be aware of, but right now, it looks like the conversation went pretty well. Thanks everyone for commenting and supporting. It helped me not just with advice, but also with calming me down when I was really panicky this morning. Here is yet another update for this one. First of all, I wanted to thank people for responding. I was majorly panicking when I wrote the post, and the comments I got helped a ton to get me to relax before talking to Noah. I wasn't expecting such a huge response at the time, and I was amazed, but looking back now, I can see why it got so much attention. It was a pretty weird situation. Next, I want to say we are both men. Apparently this makes a big difference for some people in terms of advice. Some of the people who assumed I was a woman also made some weird comments and sent me some pretty gross messages. If you did this, please stop. That's not cool. I gave a bit of an update as an edit to the original post, but now since it's been 3 months, I thought I'd give you all an update about how things have been going since then, since it seems like there's been a bit of interest, and I'm still really thankful to all of you for helping me out. Noah is doing really well. I could tell he was still a bit embarrassed for the first couple weeks, but after that, he told me again that he was still happy he asked me, because now he knew how I felt and he could get over it. He also thanked me for taking it so well, which is definitely thanks to what a lot of you said, so I guess I'm sort of passing his thanks on to you. Dr. P. One of the commenters said I should be careful not to do anything that seemed like flirting with him, so I tried keep that in check. We used to hug a lot, sit really close together, and tell each other flirty jokes. You get the idea, but I toned those all down a lot to give him space and not mess with his feelings. I honestly think I see now why he thought I might be into him, because my relationship with him was very affectionate. It's been a lesson for me on how to be more aware of how other people are interpreting my signals. About a month after he asked me out, he asked me if I wanted to go to a gay bar with him. He made it super clear that it wasn't a date, but he did it in a really sarcastic way, which was a little embarrassing for me, but also I think it was good that he could joke about it. So we went to a local gay bar together, and we had a really good time. He's a bit introverted, so I played the wingman, and he ended up flirting with this really cute guy, and he just seemed really happy. That was like 2 months ago, and we've gone to the same bar a couple more times since then. He's been getting a bit more comfortable putting himself out there, which is really cool to see, and he's just been more open and happy for the last 2 months, always smiling and eager to go do stuff. Not sure how it's related, but it's a noticeable change from before he asked me out. I'm doing great too. I'm just really happy that I didn't hurt our relationship and that he's so happy. I also learned some important things from this whole situation about communication and being aware of how I present myself. Important lessons. I actually think I feel more confident now too, since he asked me out. Getting asked out feels good, man. It sounds kind of weird, but I think it made us closer. We've started talking about relationships more, which isn't something we really talked about before. He's gone on a few dates and he tells me about them. And the most recent guy he went out with, he was really excited about, and I think he might be headed for his first serious relationship, which is amazing. That's actually what made me think of this post and decide to give you all an update. Another happy ending, We've got some real positivity shining through for this installment. Time for the next story from It's Me 2213. I'm 28F, unsure if it's time to draw boundaries with my boyfriend. 28M and his co-worker, late 20s F, who he got close to very quickly. New. Apologies for the length. I'm going to be very thorough, and also a lot has happened in a very short amount of time. First, some background and the good stuff. I have been best friends with my boyfriend since 2013. We even lived together during graduate school for 2 years before we started dating. We started dating in 2016, when we were roommates, so we've been together for about 2.5 years now and have lived together for a lot of that time. We did a brief stint of long distance when we got jobs in different locations after school. In January of this year, he moved states to be with me, and I still can't get over how amazing that was of him. We are now living together again in our own apartment, and we couldn't be happier. He is my best friend and absolutely the person I plan to spend the rest of my life with. He's smart, funny, an absolute sweetheart, and a romantic, and he makes me feel so loved every day. We have talked about our future many times, and I'm anticipating a proposal in the near future. Also, he has had many female friends during our time together, and this has never bothered me. I'm rarely the jealous type. He's hung out one-on-one with girls before, and I had no complaints. There has been one girl I told him I was uncomfortable with, and he stopped hanging out with her. But that was for a lot of reasons, and not just because she's a girl. So on to the recent issue. After moving to my state, he had to pass a couple of tests in our field before he could start working. He did so and was able to secure a job in early June. He likes his new job so far and generally likes and gets along with his co-workers, but he hadn't really made any real friends yet. He's hung out with my co-workers, sort of friends too. I'm also pretty new to the area and likes them as well, but no one he would hang out with one-on-one. I know he is missing having a group of friends back in his home state where he moved from. About a month ago, maybe a little more, he started mentioning one co-worker a lot. We'll call her Liz. At first, it was just in passing, "Oh, my co-worker Liz said this or that." It also turns out Liz used to work with an organisation that works closely with my organisation, so she knows a lot of people that I work with and what's going on with my job and field of work. So it was a small world kind of thing. She would mention someone I knew or something about my job, and he would tell her he also knew that person because of me. That kind of thing. But he started talking about her more and more often. I'm talking probably every single day over for a few weeks he would have a story about Liz or something that she said, so I knew they were talking or hanging out at work a lot. He did say that Liz mentioned she wanted to meet me, and she has a fiancé that she lives with. So that made me feel good. Nothing to worry about, and I was happy he was making a friend here. Liz actually lived nearby us, in a temporary place because they were moving around for her fiancé's job. So a couple of weeks ago, he tells me that Liz suggested they start carpooling to work together. Their office is about 30 minutes away without traffic. But our city always has traffic, so it's more like 45 minutes each way most days. Honestly, this made me a little uncomfortable, since this meant they would be spending 1 to 1.5 hours alone together in the car every time they rode together. But I didn't say anything, because they wouldn't be carpooling every day. Some days they work in the office, and other days they work on projects around town, so this would only be days when they both go into the office, maybe 2 to 3 days a week. Besides, he only mentioned it in passing as an idea at first. A few days later, as he was headed out the door, he said, "Okay, I'm going to go pick up Liz and head into work." I was surprised because he never told me they decided to definitely start carpooling together, but it obviously wasn't a big deal. He has never mentioned it again, so as far as I know, that's the only day they've ridden together. It hasn't been an ongoing thing. I was fine with this. Things started intensifying quickly last week, though. As I mentioned, Liz and her fiancé were in a temporary place before, so they decided to start looking for a permanent apartment. My boyfriend casually mentioned to me one day last week that they were actually interested in our building, and that they wanted to come see it the next day. This came out of left field to me. Our building is very nice. It's a luxury building in a good area downtown, but there are also tons of similar buildings in the area. But I figured they were just checking out all kinds of places, and ours was probably one of many on the list. So late last week, they came by our building for a tour. I actually saw them briefly on the elevator and we met for the first time, but they were being given a tour by management, so we didn't hang out. Well, later that night, Liz texted my boyfriend that they decided to rent in our building. I honestly didn't know what to say because I wasn't thrilled. I felt like now they will definitely want to start carpooling together every day they can, and they will start becoming even closer. My boyfriend was obviously very happy about it when he told me. I just kind of asked if they were looking at any other places and why they weren't looking any closer to where she and my boyfriend work, and he said they just really liked this building and her fiance works more closely to our area, so it works for them to live here. Obviously, there was nothing I could say, so I just said, cool. Ever since then, I feel like they have already been talking more and more. They text and have called each other a couple of times. To be fair, as far as I know, it has all been either work or apartment related. But I also don't really see his phone and have no idea how much they actually talk. A couple of final things prompted me to write this post. Up until now, I wasn't thrilled about all of this, but could deal with it. This weekend, we traveled to visit my family for the holiday weekend. Yesterday, during a family lunch, he got up and went into the other room with his phone for a few minutes. When he came back, I asked, "Where'd you go?" And he just said, "I was getting a phone call." Later, I asked who was calling him at lunch. He said it was Liz with a few questions because they were moving in at the time. This slightly bothered me because I feel like if I hadn't asked, he wasn't planning to tell me it was Liz who called. He went back to our city last night while I am staying in my hometown with my family for a couple of extra days. While driving him to the airport, I got a random thought, so I asked, "You're just going to take an Uber back home, right?" That's how we got to the airport. He kind of hesitated and then said, "I was actually going to see if maybe Liz could pick me up so I don't have to spend money on an Uber." Yet again, I felt like he never would have mentioned this to me if I hadn't asked. Also, we live close to the airport, so an Uber is not expensive, and he makes good money. I reminded him that Liz and her fiancé were moving that day and probably did not want to come pick him up at the airport. I would have said this for anyone. Moving sucks. And he thought about it and agreed. He didn't end up asking her. I don't know what to do from here. On one hand, I am genuinely glad he's making a friend. There are no red flags so far. Things seem 100% platonic. Plus, she has a fiancé, so we could all be couple friends. On the other hand, he seems to be getting really close to her really quickly. He talks about her constantly, a lot more than I explained in this post. They are probably going to be riding together often, and I feel like he is starting to, unconsciously or not, kind of hide some interactions with her from me. Is it time to set boundaries? If so, what would reasonable boundaries even be? Is carpooling together too much? Is it okay for them to hang out alone together outside of work? I have no idea, and I've never been in this situation before. I don't know how to talk to him about this. I just feel like we need to have a talk now that she is living in our building, but maybe I should wait and see if things escalate. TLDR of original. My boyfriend has become fast friends with a female coworker. She and her fiancé are now moving into our apartment building, and my boyfriend is seeing and talking to her more and more. I don't know if it's time to set boundaries or if I'm getting ahead of myself. A lot has happened since my last post, and I got some good advice there, so I wanted to post an update. After I made the last post, I came home from the trip with my family a couple of days later. I told my boyfriend that I wanted to talk to him about something, and I brought up his friendship with Liz. I basically brought up all of my concerns from the post. I told him that I didn't want to discourage him from having a friend, but I also felt like they were talking quite a lot and spending a lot of time together, and that it was starting to make me feel uncomfortable. My boyfriend took it really well. He immediately reassured me that he only saw her as a friend, and that he hadn't even realized how it could look to me. When I brought up how I felt like he wasn't being forthcoming with information, like how he didn't mention the phone call from her, he said that was 100% unintentional. He then immediately asked what he could do going forward to make me feel more comfortable. He offered to stop carpooling with her and to cut down on contact with her except for work-related stuff. I told him I didn't have a problem with the carpooling because financially it does make sense. He spends a lot of money on gas, but maybe he could try to text and call her outside of work a little bit less. I also told him I would really love to meet her and her fiancé, and he enthusiastically agreed. He set up a hangout for the following weekend. The two of us and Liz and her fiancé all went out for drinks at a bar by our building. They moved in by now. It was actually really fun. It turns out we all have a ton in common. Liz and I do very similar work, and we all have common nerdy interests. It was a little awkward at first, as meeting new people often is, but once we all got comfortable, we had a blast. From there, we have all become fast friends, and Liz and I have developed our own separate friendship too. We text often, go over to each other's places for dinner sometimes, and hang out on weekends. I can honestly say I really like Liz and her fiancé as a person and trust her 100%. I no longer have a problem with her friendship with my boyfriend at all. They do still carpool sometimes, but they've never hung out alone outside of work. It's always the four of us. I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Finally, I have a separate, but slightly related, update. My boyfriend is now my fiancé. Less than a month after I made my last post, he took me out for a really beautiful and romantic dinner. When we came home, our apartment was covered in roses and candles. I was so shocked I could barely move as he got down on one knee and proposed. I said yes, and then cried for about 2 hours as we called all of our friends and family. It was absolutely perfect, and we are getting married next year. It turns out that Liz actually helped him plan the proposal, and that was part of why they were talking a lot too. Since she lives in our building now, he had all of the flowers, candles, champagne, and accessories shipped to her and kept at her place until he was ready for them. He even had her hold onto the ring the week before he did it. After he proposed, she came upstairs and took photos for us and cried with us. That was the moment I realized what a great friend she is to both of us. So communication saves the day again. We're all great friends now, and Liz and I have regular girls' nights to plan our weddings together. Another happy ending. Let's see if our next story from user LadyGray90 is equally as happy or not. My 28F colleague, 30F, didn't invite me to her wedding, and it's completely unraveled our friendship. One of my work colleagues is a lifelong friend of mine. We lived on the same street growing up, went to the same school, and when I needed a job after graduating university, she made me aware of an opening at the company she worked at. I applied, got the job, and it's been quite a few years since, and we still work together. It's a pretty small company and quite male-dominated, so after we started working together, we became really close. We take all our lunches together, we regularly stop by each other's desks for a chat, and we quickly became known around the office as inseparable. A year ago, she got engaged to a long-term partner, and I was ecstatic for her. She had a really tough time a couple of years ago, 2 family deaths close together, and I did everything I could to be a good friend to her while she was in the worst stages of grieving. She cried with me daily for weeks, and I made sure she knew I was always available to listen. I also took about a third of her workload off her voluntarily, so she could take days off when she needed to without stressing about her work building up. So now that life has gotten better for her, and she's always smiling and excited, it's really nice to see. Ever since she got engaged, as expected, she's talked a lot about wedding plans, especially at our lunches. I know basically every detail. When she booked her venue, she was really excited, but she refused to tell me where it was going to be, saying that she wanted it to be a surprise when the invitations came out. The wedding is 2 weeks away now, and I've long since stopped waiting for my invitation to show up. I know when they were sent because she told me all about delivering them and shows me every day the gifts people have started to buy off their registry. I feel silly for saying it, but the more I think about it, the more hurt I feel that I haven't been included. It's a big wedding, and she has invited some other people from work that I didn't know she was even close to. She hasn't mentioned the reason why I'm not invited, and at this point, I feel too awkward to ask. I guess it's just a slap in the face because I really thought we were close, and now I'm realizing that maybe we're not. The trouble is, since all this, I've started to really examine our friendship, and I'm wondering if she even cares about me at all. I can think of 100 examples of where I've helped her work through decisions, listened to her vent, stood up for her when she's had issues with colleagues, etc. Even tons of little things like, if anyone brings in cake and she's out of the office, I always save her a slice so she doesn't miss out. But I can't remember a time that she did anything for me in return. Now, when she talks to me, I've realized she doesn't even listen to me. When I'm finished talking, she just carries on with what she was saying before, almost as if I'd never spoken at all. If we're ever talking about me or something I've been doing, she never has anything to say. She just kind of nods and then switches the conversation back to herself. I'm starting to think she couldn't care less about me. She just likes having someone around who she can talk at, and whoever that person is doesn't really matter to her. I've invested so many years into this friendship, it's really cut me deep. I feel used. It's also made being at work incredibly lonely, because she was my only friend. I've stopped having lunch with her, and any time she tries to chat, I politely bring the conversation to a quick end and go back to work. She doesn't appear to have even noticed. I do still wish her well. I'm still glad for her that life has turned around and she's so happy. But I'm a bit lost. I'm not sure if I'm being too harsh because I'm hurt, or if I even have the right to feel hurt in the first place, as I know weddings have a finite number of guests and you have to leave people out that you would invite in an ideal world. But I'm not sure there's any way back from this either. Has anyone else had a similar experience? Am I being unreasonable or overdramatic? Should I just let the dust settle and see how I feel then? Edit 1. Just to clarify things that have been asked a lot or requested to be put in an edit. 1. She hand-delivered the invites to other people at work, so I know it hasn't been lost in the post too. I haven't asked her about it because I'm a total doormat and scared of difficult conversations. And 3. I invited her to my wedding, but that was years ago, so it's possible she thinks things have changed since then. Edit 2. This has got a lot more attention than I expected, and my first ever gold from a kind stranger, thank you. I have read every single comment. Thank you all so much for taking the time to give me advice. You have given me a lot to think about. Opinion seems to be divided over whether or not I should confront the wedding invitation issue or just let it go. I am definitely going to make sure that it isn't a mistake. But as for getting an explanation why she didn't invite me, I'm undecided. I'm going to have a think about that and the best way to proceed, but your thoughts have all been really helpful. In terms of our friendship in general, I'm not going to be too hasty to write it off. I'm going to try and put my feelings aside and see if I'm right about it being one-sided. If it is, then I will have learned a good life lesson, and if I see it as worth saving, then I'll have to deal with that the best way I can. It does seem the bigger issue here is my non-confrontational approach to my relationships. Some of your comments were hard to read, but only because I know you're right, and this is something I have to change. I've withdrawn from friendships before because they've hurt me, and I've felt unable to say anything, and that's not really fair. It's a general problem I have with uncomfortable conversations. Whenever I have to have them, I basically descend into a panic. My mouth goes dry, I shake, and I can't find the right words to say. If it's a bad enough problem that I can't ask a good friend a simple question, then I can't ignore it anymore, and I need to work on this. Thank you for pointing this out to me as a real problem. I'm going to find a way to get better at it. I will post an update of what happens. Thank you again. So it took me a few days to decide the best way to approach this. But yesterday, I had lunch with her again and had the conversation. I started by saying, "So you've sent all your invitations out now, haven't you?" She looked immediately panicked by my question, and I knew right away that she didn't want me to go down this road. When she said she had sent them all, I asked if that meant she could show me her venue now. She showed me the website of it, including the photo gallery, and talked me through all about where everything was going to happen, all the flowers and decorations she was going to add, etc. It's a nice enough country hotel with some pretty gardens, but I'm not sure what all the secrecy was for. I probed a little more, asking who she's invited from work. The list didn't include me. Said I was looking forward to seeing the photos so I could see how everything looked. She didn't correct me that I would see it on the day. And then I was completely sure that my lack of invitation wasn't an accident. She looked so relieved when I switched subject and asked if she's excited about her honeymoon and having a rest from all the wedding stress. So I'm definitely not invited. I thought it over carefully, and I have decided not to ask why, for 3 reasons. The reason is already fairly obvious. She clearly doesn't think we're anything more than colleagues, and I've misread the situation. There were some other theories suggested, e.g. jealous husband-to-be, associating me with her past grief, but considering everything I know about her and our history, I'm sure it's not that. I'm not sure why she didn't cool it on the wedding talk with someone she had no intention of inviting, or even just bring it up with me and explain why I'm not invited, but never mind. Having an awkward relationship at work is the last thing I want. I'm worried that if I push this and turn it into an issue, that I'll look pathetic and needy, or it will just be unprofessional. I also run the risk of her bad-mouthing me to colleagues and mutual friends, and I will find it much easier and less messy to handle my own feelings quietly. This is a once-in-a-lifetime experience for her, and I don't want to be the source of drama that dampens her spirits at all. I'd rather just let her enjoy her wedding, make good memories, and not bring her down. And, I'm fine with not going. It was never really about getting invited to a wedding. It was more having to face the fact that I'd been naive and taken for granted, and I felt silly that I'd invested way too much in this relationship. That's not all on her, because she was never obligated to be my friend. Talking it through on my previous post actually really helped me work through my feelings. When I went back to work on Monday, I felt much calmer and more detached from it emotionally. I have looked back on our whole relationship, and honestly, she's always been self-involved, entitled, and narcissistic. Being a bride has just made it more obvious, but it's always been there. She's also never given back to me, besides helping me get my job, which of course I'm grateful for, in that she's never been willing to talk me through any problems I've had, and although I help her happily with her work, she says no if I ask her for help in return. She has a few office enemies, and even though I saw her negative traits that caused her to be disliked by some people, I overlooked them and defended her anyway. Now I have put a little distance there. It's quite apparent that she's not a very nice person, and I'm genuinely okay with just moving on. She hasn't really noticed the distance between us so far, or she has noticed and doesn't care, is relieved that I'm giving her space. So I intend to just continue with doing that. If she eventually asks why, or I get the sense that she's trying to rekindle our friendship, then it will be time to clear the air with how I've been feeling. If she doesn't, and we just continue drifting, then that's probably for the best. It's sad to lose a friend, and it will probably take me some time to get over it and to become comfortable with the change in our relationship, but I have other genuine friendships and plenty of colleagues who are lovely people who I can get to know better now. The main thing I really took from my original post, and I'm so glad I did post because I needed some tough love on this, is that my fear of confrontation really needs dealing with. If I can learn how to better speak my mind as things are happening, that will stop things from building and building until I have to have a serious conversation, and it makes what should have been a molehill into a mountain. I also need to figure out how to have difficult conversations without having an anxiety attack, which not only weakens my message, but is extremely distressing and puts me off dealing with things and being honest with people. I had a couple of books on assertiveness recommended to me, so I've bought them to start me off. I'm also looking into going to a coach, or maybe a couple of therapy sessions at least, to try and better myself. I don't want to hurt other people by doing this, so this has become top priority for me. Thank you so much everyone who pointed that out to me. I was aware of it, but I didn't think it was a problem and figured I'd just be that way all my life. Now I know better. Thank you for being so honest with me. Also, thank you to those who talked me through the one-sided friendship issue. I'm a good listener and have always attracted people who need to vent. But I only ever noticed the one-off conversations and didn't think I was being taken advantage of as a long-term listening ear. I have been examining my other friendships in the last few days to see if anyone else is using me in the same way, or if I've even been doing this to others and not had the self-awareness to realize. There are a couple of changes I need to make, including a friendship that I need to set some boundaries in, and another one where I've not been giving back to the other person as much I should have. I have learned a really valuable lesson from this about maintaining healthy relationships, and I'm very grateful for that. Well, a friendship ended. I guess it can't be all sunshine and rainbows. That's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Good night.